Leo, notice the impulse first before we go anywhere. Right now, some part of you wants to move, to reach out, to check, to close the distance, to do something to make the thing you want happen faster. Feel that impulse rise, and then, just for the length of this reading, set it gently down. Because everything I'm about to walk you through rests on one quiet instruction that your whole body is resisting. Stay where you are. Don't move. Not out of stubbornness, not out of some cold little game, but because a shift has already begun that only completes if you hold still long enough to let it. The moving has been done. It's someone else's turn now. Let me take you back though, because you can't understand where this is going without seeing clearly where it's been. There was a long stretch where you were the one in motion. You were the initiator, the one who reached first, who kept the thread alive, who noticed the silence and filled it, who carried the weight of keeping this connection warm. You told yourself that was love, and in a way it was. But it was also exhausting. And somewhere underneath the giving, a quiet ache was forming, the ache of always being the one who tries. I want to name what that position did to you, because you've never fully let yourself feel it. Being the constant pursuer slowly teaches you a lie about your own worth. Every time you reach and the response is lukewarm, a small voice inside adjusts your sense of value downward. You begin to believe you have to earn what should have been freely given. You start performing, over-explaining, softening yourself, making yourself easier to want. And the cruel arithmetic of pursuit is that the harder you chase, the less valued you become, not because you're less valuable, but because anything that's always available stops being noticed. You were teaching them, without meaning to, that your presence required no effort to keep. Here is the quiet law underneath all of this, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. In any connection, attention flows toward what feels slightly out of reach and away from what feels guaranteed. This isn't cruelty. It's simply how desire works. Desire needs a little space to move into. It needs a question, a gap, a reason to lean forward. When you fill every gap yourself, when you answer the question before it's asked, when you leave no space at all, you accidentally remove the very thing that pulls a person toward you. The distance you've been so afraid of is not the enemy. Handled rightly, the distance is the magnet. So let me show you the moment it started to turn, because there was one, even if you didn't recognize it while it was happening, at some point, worn out or wounded or simply done, you stopped reaching quite as much. Maybe you didn't even decide it consciously. You just had less to give, or you finally protected yourself a little, or life pulled your attention elsewhere. And in that pause, something changed in the field between you that you couldn't see from your side. The steady signal you'd always sent went quiet. And silence from someone who was always present is the loudest sound there is. Feel what happened on their side when that quiet arrived, because this is where the whole dynamic begins to invert. They had grown used to your presence the way you grow used to a light that's always on, not noticing it, not thinking about it, simply assuming it would be there. And then it dimmed. And the strange thing about a light you took for granted is that you never feel its warmth until the room goes cold. The absence you created, without even trying to, did something your presence never could. It made them aware. It made them wonder. It turned their attention, for the first time in a long time, back toward you. This is the kind of turning point that a reading from Sarah Angel Tarot is here to help you actually see. Not the loud, obvious moments, but the quiet hinge where a whole dynamic swings the other way while you're too close to it to notice. Because you've been so focused on what you might have done wrong that you've missed the thing that quietly started going right the moment you stopped overgiving. Let me explain why your stillness raised your worth. Because this isn't manipulation, and I don't want you to mistake it for a trick. Value and scarcity are woven together in the human mind in ways none of us fully control. What's abundant, we discount. What requires something of us, we prize. When you were endlessly available, you were unconsciously priced as abundant. The instant you became a little less reachable, the pricing shifted not because you changed as a person, but because they suddenly had to consider the possibility of your absence. And nothing clarifies how much someone wants a thing quite like the dawning fear that they might not have it forever. So here's what's stirring in them right now, in this present moment, as you sit reading this. A restlessness, a pull they can't quite explain and might not even admit to themselves yet. They keep expecting the old signal from you, the message, the reach, the reassurance, and it isn't coming the way it used to. And that missing signal has created a low hum of unease in them, a sense that something has shifted, that the ground they stood on so casually is no longer guaranteed. That unease is not a bad sign. That unease is the exact feeling that precedes a chase. I want you to understand what they're beginning to realize, because it's specific and it's not what you'd guess. They're not primarily missing the things you did for them. They're missing the feeling of being chosen by you. When you pursued them, you handed them a steady, effortless sense of being wanted, and they leaned back into it without ever having to reciprocate. Now that the pursuing has quieted, that warm certainty has gone with it, and they're discovering how much they relied on it, they miss being wanted by you far more than they ever missed you when you were doing all the wanting. The absence of your pursuit is teaching them at last what it was worth. Notice the reversal of the questions, because this is how you'll know the polarity has truly flipped. There was a time when you were the one wondering, where do I stand? Do they think of me? Am I too much? Should I reach out again? All those anxious questions that live in the mind of the pursuer. Those questions are migrating now. They're crossing the space between you and taking up residence in the other person. They're the ones starting to wonder where they stand. They're the one replaying interactions, searching for signs, uncertain of their footing. The anxious wondering didn't disappear. It changed addresses. And this is where that particular energy of commitment enters the picture, the sense of something wanting to be made secure. Because when a person feels the ground they took for granted beginning to move, their instinct is not to drift further, it's to secure their footing. The casual becomes urgent. The someday becomes now. The one who assumed they had all the time in the world suddenly feels the clock they never noticed before, and that awareness turns loose interest into genuine pursuit. What you're sensing isn't just that they'll reach out. It's that they're moving toward wanting to make this real, to define it, to hold on to it in a way they never bothered to when they thought it would simply always be there. The deeper current beneath a reading like this, the thing Sarah Angel Tarot exists to remind you of, is that your worth was never actually in question. Only the timing was, only their readiness was. And both of those are finally catching up to a truth about you that was always steady and true. You didn't become more valuable when you stopped chasing. You simply stopped hiding your value behind your effort and let it stand on its own where it could finally be seen. Now let me speak to the hardest part, because I can feel it pressing at you even as I describe all of this. The temptation to move. Every fiber of you, trained by all that time spent pursuing, is screaming that you should do something, send the message, break the silence, check whether it's working, take back control by acting. And I need you to hear this clearly. Reaching now would undo everything. It would answer the question they've just started asking themselves. It would refill the space that's finally pulling them forward. It would reset the entire dynamic back to the old arrangement where you carry the weight and they lean back. The pull only works while the space stays open. The moment you close it, the magnet switches off. Because desire, once it's been activated, needs room to complete its arc. Think of someone reaching for something just out of grasp. The reaching is the wanting made visible. But if the thing leaps into their hand before they finish stretching for it, the wanting collapses, unfinished, unsatisfying. They never get to feel the full pull of their own desire. When you hold still and let them come the whole distance, you let them experience the complete arc of wanting you, and that complete arc is what transforms casual interest into something that lasts. Interrupt it, and you rob them of the very experience that would have bound them to you. But I want to correct something, because don't move can be badly misunderstood. And I don't want you to turn stillness into suffering. Holding your position is not passivity. It is not sitting frozen by the phone, refreshing, waiting, white-knuckled, performing a stillness you don't feel. That kind of waiting is just pursuit in disguise, your whole being still pointed at them, still reaching, only with your hands tied. Real stillness is different. Real stillness has your attention turned back toward your own life. It's not the absence of movement. It's movement in a different direction toward yourself. Let me tell you what don't move actually means then, so you can do it from the right place. It means you stop organizing your inner world around another person's next action. It means your peace stops being hostage to whether they reach out. It means you become genuinely absorbed in your own days again, so that their eventual return is a welcome addition to a full life rather than the rescue of an empty one. Stillness, done right, is not a strategy you perform for them. It's a homecoming you make to yourself. And the beautiful paradox is that the version of you who has truly come home is exponentially more magnetic than the version straining toward the door. This is why the source of your stillness matters more than the stillness itself. If you hold your position as a tactic, waiting them out, playing it cool, while secretly churning, they'll feel the strain underneath it, because desperation has a frequency that leaks through any performance. But if you hold your position because you have genuinely returned to your own center, because you actually are at peace, because your worth doesn't depend on their motion, that authentic settledness broadcasts something no strategy can fake. People can't always name what draws them, but they can always feel the difference between someone performing calm and someone who simply is calm. Become the second one, and you won't have to do anything at all. So fill the waiting with your own life. And let me be specific about why this works on more than one level. When you pour yourself into your own world, your work, your friendships, the things that light you up, independent of any connection, two things happen at once. You become happier, which is reason enough, and you become more attractive, because a person fully engaged in a life of their own is the most compelling sight there is. Nobody leans toward a life on hold. Everybody leans toward a life in motion. Live yours so fully that reaching you requires them to catch up, and watch how quickly the catching up begins. There's a sign that tends to come just before they move, and I want you to recognize it rather than dismiss it. Often it arrives as a small, low-stakes test first, a light touch, a minor reason to make contact, something they can frame as casual so their pride stays protected. They're checking whether the door is still open before they commit to walking through it. Don't mistake the smallness of that first gesture for the smallness of their feeling. The tentative first move is exactly what a person does when the feeling is large and the fear of rejection is larger. Meet it warmly, but don't fling the door wide and come rushing out. Let them keep walking towards you. Let me tell you how the chase itself tends to unfold, because you'll want to recognize it when it starts rather than second guessing it. It rarely arrives all at once as a grand declaration. It builds. First the testing touch, then a slightly bolder reach, then the gradual increase of effort as they feel you receiving them without immediately taking over the pursuit yourself. Each step they take that you don't rush to match teaches them that they have to keep moving to keep you. And that lesson that you are worth continued effort is the single most valuable thing this whole reversal can install in a connection. You're not just waiting for them to come. You're letting them build the muscle of pursuing you, which is a muscle they'll need for everything that comes after. When it does come, there's a way to receive it that preserves everything you've built, and I want to prepare you for it because the old instinct will be strong. Receive warmly, but do not immediately collapse back into the pursuer. The moment they start reaching, everything in you will want to reward it by flooding them with all the wanting you've been holding back to reach as hard as they're reaching, to match them, to finally let it all out. Resist that just a little longer. Let them lead the pursuit for a while. Your warmth in receiving is enough. You don't have to seize the initiative back the instant it's offered to you. Let them enjoy the unfamiliar, invigorating work of winning you. I want to say something about pacing because the timing of your responses carries more meaning than the words themselves. When you were the pursuer, you answered instantly, always, because their message was the highlight of your day and you couldn't bear to make them wait. That instant availability told the story about who was reaching for whom. Now, without playing any cold or calculated game, simply let your responses come from the natural rhythm of a full life rather than from a phone clutched in anticipation. When your reply arrives because you finished what you were doing and then turned your attention to them, rather than dropping everything the instant they appeared, it quietly communicates that you have a life. They're being welcomed into, not a vigil they finally ended. Here's what you must not do when they arrive, and it's the most tempting thing of all, so brace for it. Do not, in your relief and joy, hand back all your power in a single grateful rush. Do not apologize for the distance. Do not explain yourself, over-reassure them, or immediately return to carrying the whole connection just because they finally showed up. Their arrival is not a cue to resume your old role. It's the beginning of a new arrangement, one where effort flows in both directions. If you sprint back into being the giver the moment they appear, you'll teach them that the reach was a temporary detour and the old dynamic is available again. Hold the new shape. Let it become the normal. Because the real work isn't getting them to chase, it's maintaining the healthy polarity after they do. A connection stays alive when both people continue to reach for each other, when neither one goes fully slack in the certainty of being loved. You've just relearned your own value and your own magnetism. Don't surrender it the moment you're wanted again. Keep tending your own life. Keep your center. Keep being someone worth pursuing, and let them keep being someone who pursues. The goal was never to swap places so they become the desperate one. The goal is balance, where the wanting runs both ways, and neither of you takes the other for granted again. I want to name the healing available in all of this, because it reaches far beyond this one connection. You are learning, maybe for the first time in your life, that you are worth being pursued. So many people carry a deep, unspoken assumption that love is something they must chase, earn, and work exhaustingly to keep, that if they ever stop trying, they'd be left alone. This reversal breaks that assumption at the root. When you hold still and watch someone move towards you, you receive proof in your own experience that you don't have to chase to be loved. That your presence alone is enough to pull someone across a distance. That lesson, once learned in the body, changes every relationship you'll ever have afterward. Let me widen this out to the pattern it breaks, because I feel this has been the shape of things for you far longer than this one connection. You have so often been the one who loves more, tries harder, holds tighter, the one whose effort props up the bond while the other person relaxes into being adored. And you've quietly wondered whether that's simply your fate, whether you're built to be the pursuer, whether being loved as much as you love is something that happens to other people. This is where that story ends. Not because you finally chased skillfully enough, but because you finally stopped and discovered that when you stop, the right kind of love comes toward you on its own. I need you to hear something true about your worth, because you've spent so long trying to prove it that you've forgotten it was never actually in doubt. When someone doesn't pursue you, it is almost never a verdict on your value. It's a reflection of their own readiness, their own fears, their own tendency to take for granted whatever feels secure. Your worth was constant the entire time, through all the reaching, all the lukewarm responses, all the moments you felt like too much. It didn't rise when they finally noticed. It was always there, at full strength, simply waiting for the conditions that would let it be seen. And stillness created those conditions. Stillness didn't make you valuable. It made your value visible. Consider what it is about a settled, rooted person that pulls others toward them so powerfully, because understanding it will help you stay in that place. A person anchored in themselves offers something rare, a sense of stability, of not neediness, of being complete on their own. That completeness is magnetic, precisely because it's uncommon. Most people are subtly reaching, subtly needing, subtly asking to be filled. The one who isn't, the one who seems whole and at ease and in no particular hurry, becomes the thing everyone leans toward. Your stillness is attractive, not because it withholds, but because it signals a fullness that others instinctively want to be near. Trust the timing even through the hardest stretch, because there will be a gap between now and their move, and that gap is where most people break. The waiting will test you. There will be a moment where it feels like it isn't working, where the silence stretches and the old panic rises and every instinct screams that you should just reach out and end the uncertainty. That moment is precisely the test. It's the point where holding still is hardest and matters most. Because what's happening in that silence, invisible to you, is the slow build of their wanting, and wanting needs time to ripen. If you break the silence right at the peak of their building desire, you cut the fruit before it's ripe. Hold through the hard stretch. It's the last and most important part. There's a quiet dignity in not chasing that I want you to feel and claim, because it's a strength you've been undervaluing. To want someone and not pursue them, to hold your desire with grace rather than flinging it at their feet, requires a self-respect that most people never develop. It says, I want you, and I will not abandon myself to have you. It says, my longing does not override my worth. That combination of desire and dignity is one of the most attractive things a human being can embody, and you're being asked to embody it now. Not the absence of feeling, the presence of feeling held with self-respect. That's the whole art of this. And notice what their eventual pursuit will reveal, because it will tell you something you couldn't learn any other way. When someone chases you, moves toward you, makes the effort, closes the distance of their own will, you finally get to see their genuine feeling unclouded by your own pursuit. All that time you spent reaching, you could never be sure how much they truly wanted you, because your effort filled the space where their choice would have shown itself. Now the space is open, and whatever they do with it is pure signal. Their movement toward you is the truest information you've ever received about where they actually stand. Let them show you. Then you'll know. Let me address the thing your mind does in the quiet, because it's working against you without your knowing it. In the waiting, you'll be tempted to live inside your imagination, rehearsing the reunion, scripting what they'll say, replaying old moments, running the whole reconnection in your head 100 times over. It feels like keeping hope alive. But that constant mental reaching is just pursuit that's gone underground. Your body is still, but your attention is sprinting toward them every waking hour, and that fixation carries its own subtle weight in the field between you. The most powerful thing you can do is genuinely take your mind off it, not suppress the thoughts, but let your attention be so naturally occupied elsewhere that they simply don't have room to run on a loop. A watched pot and a watched connection behave exactly the same way. I want to separate two things that look alike but could not be more different: detachment and indifference. You are not being asked to stop caring. Indifference is the death of a connection. It's genuine coldness, the true absence of feeling, and it would end this rather than transform it. Detachment is something else entirely. Detachment means you care deeply and you release your grip on the outcome at the same time. You still want them. You've simply stopped needing to control when and how they come. It's the difference between clutching something so tightly your knuckles go white and holding it in an open palm. The open palm is not indifference. It's the most loving and the most powerful posture there is, because it wants, without grasping. There's a trap I have to name directly, because nearly everyone falls into it. The checking. Watching for signs of them, monitoring whether they've been active, searching for evidence of what they're feeling, refreshing to see if anything has changed. Every one of those small checks is a tiny act of pursuit. And worse, each one chips away at your own peace and quietly tells your nervous system that your calm depends on their movement. Set the watching down. You do not need to monitor the thing you're allowing to come to you. Surveillance and stillness cannot coexist. One is the anxious opposite of the other. Trust the process enough to stop auditing it. Consider what the people around them are noticing about you now, because word travels in ways you can't see. When you were the pursuer, the story that circulated about you was subtly one of availability, of someone always there, always reaching. That story has changed. The people in their world are beginning to register a different version of you, someone self-possessed, someone moving forward, someone who didn't fall apart in the absence. And that shift in your reputation reaches them through channels you'll never trace. Sometimes a person's pursuit begins not with anything you did directly, but with an offhand remark from a friend about how well you seem to be doing. Live well and let the news of it travel on its own. I want to prepare you for a particular kind of moment, because it often becomes the turning point. At some stage, they will encounter evidence of you thriving without them, a glimpse of you genuinely happy, absorbed in your life, radiant in a way that has nothing to do with them. And something will drop in their chest. Not because they're petty, but because nothing awakens a person to what they're losing, quite like seeing that the other person is going to be perfectly, beautifully fine either way. The one who assumed you'd always be waiting suddenly confronts the possibility that you're moving on. That confrontation is often the exact thing that turns a slow drift into an urgent pursuit. But hear this carefully, because it matters. You must not manufacture that moment. The instinct will be to perform your thriving for them, to make sure they see it, to stage your happiness as a message. Don't. The power of it lies entirely in its authenticity. The second it becomes a performance aimed at them, it curdles into another form of pursuit, and they'll feel the difference. Real, unstaged joy that happens to reach them is magnetic. Manufactured joy designed to be witnessed is transparent and a little sad. Just live. Let your genuine flourishing do its work without your interference. You don't need to point at it. Light doesn't have to announce itself. Let me offer you an image that captures the whole principle, because it's older than any of us. Nature does not tolerate a vacuum. When a space opens, everything around it moves to fill it. The absence you created by stepping back is not empty. It's a vacuum. And it exerts a real pull on the person who used to occupy that space with you. This is why you don't have to do anything active. The pull is structural. It's built into how connection works. The moment you stopped rushing to fill every gap yourself, you created a space that their own energy is now moving to fill. Your stillness isn't doing nothing. It's holding open the vacuum that draws them back. There's a deeper danger I want to steer you clear of, and it's the only real one in this whole situation: self-abandonment. The true risk was never that they wouldn't come. The true risk is that in the wanting, you lose yourself, that you contort, diminish, and abandon your own needs so completely in pursuit of someone else that you disappear. That's the thing to guard against, more than any silence from them. As long as you stay rooted in yourself, you cannot truly lose in this, because you'll have kept the one thing that actually matters. Come home to yourself and stay there, and whatever happens with them, you'll have won the more important victory. Let me give you a quiet reassurance about the connection itself, because part of you fears that holding still means letting it slip away. Understand this. If this connection is genuinely meant for you, your stillness will not lose it. It will reveal it. What comes toward you when you stop chasing is the true measure of what was always there. And if in the space you've opened, they don't move at all, then the stillness has spared you from endlessly chasing something that was never going to turn and face you. Either way, you win clarity. Stillness doesn't gamble with something real. It protects you from pouring more of yourself into something that isn't. Feel the shift in season that this represents, because it's larger than one connection. You have been, for so long, in a season of pouring out, giving, initiating, sustaining, carrying. That season is ending. What's beginning is a season of being poured into, of receiving, of letting yourself be the one who is tended rather than always the one who tends. This is not a reward you have to earn by suffering first. It's simply your turn. The cycle has come round. Let yourself receive without guilt, without the compulsion to immediately repay it by resuming the giving. Receiving graciously is its own skill, and this is where you learn it. Think about where all that reclaimed energy goes now, because this is one of the quiet gifts. For a long time, an enormous amount of your life force was routed toward pursuing the mental space, the emotional labor, the constant low-grade effort of keeping a connection alive largely by yourself. That energy is coming back to you now. Feel how much you have available when you stop spending it all on the chase. Pour it into yourself, your growth, your dreams, the parts of your life that have been waiting patiently in the background while you were busy reaching. The stillness doesn't just change the dynamic with them. It hands you back a fortune of energy you'd forgotten you were spending. Notice the identity that's forming in you through all of this. Because you're not just changing a behavior, you're becoming someone new. You are shifting from the one who pursues to the one who is sovereign, who stands in their own worth, who lets love come to them because they know they don't have to beg for it. That's not a tactic you're using. It's a self you're growing into. And once you've truly become this person, you never have to strategize about being still again, because stillness will simply be your nature. The pursuer was a role you played out of an old fear. The sovereign is who you actually are, finally allowed to stand up. I want you to trust a specific signal, because your body will know before anything visible happens. There's often a shift in the air just before someone moves towards you, a strange sudden ease around a subject that has been tense, a lightening, a day where thinking of them doesn't ache the way it did. People misread that calm as having finally let go. Sometimes it is. But often it's your own intuition sensing the approach before any message arrives, quietly relaxing because on some level you already know it's coming. If that unexplained peace settles over you, don't rush to interpret it as the end of hope. It might be the quiet announcement of its arrival. Release your grip on how it has to happen, because the mind loves to script the reunion in a particular shape and then miss the real one because it looked different. You don't get to control the form their return takes, and you don't need to. Your only task is to stay open and rooted so that whatever shape it arrives in, you're able to receive it. The reconnection might come through an avenue you didn't expect, in a manner you didn't plan for, wearing a face you didn't anticipate. Loosen your grip on the script. Keep your heart open and your feet planted, and let the how take care of itself. And when they do come, offer them a particular grace, because it costs you nothing and it strengthens everything. Let them save face. A person returning after taking someone for granted carries a quiet shame about it. You do not need to make them grovel, to extract an admission, to make them pay in full for every moment they lean back. You can simply, warmly let them in without a reckoning at the threshold. That generosity is not weakness, and it's not you letting yourself be walked over. You've already reset the dynamic simply by holding still. Letting them return with their dignity intact makes you someone safe to come home to. And it's the mark of a person operating from strength rather than wounded pride. Let me show you what lasting looks like once this polarity is healthy. Because getting them to chase is only the doorway, not the house. What you're building toward is not a connection where they pursue and you finally get to lean back and be adored, simply flipping the old imbalance. It's a connection where the reaching flows both ways, where two whole people keep choosing each other, where neither one goes slack in the certainty of being loved. You felt what it's like to be the only one reaching. You know now that you never want to return there. So build the other thing, the mutual thing, the balance thing, where effort and desire move in both directions and the taking for granted never gets a foothold again. Here is something small and grounding to carry into the waiting, because reassurance holds better with the practice attached. When the urge to reach rises, and it will rise, pause and place your hand somewhere on yourself, your chest, your arm, wherever feels steadying, and remind yourself quietly that you are the destination, not the traveler. Let that phrase settle into you. You are the one being moved toward. You are the still point others orient around. Return to that whenever the old pursuing instinct flares. And each time you do, you'll find the urge to chase loosens its hold a little more until standing still stops feeling like restraint and starts feeling simply like home. Resist one more temptation while you wait, because it wears the mask of caution, but it's really just pursuit in another costume, the urge to test them. To set a small trap, drop a bit of bait, engineer a situation to see whether they'll respond, to force a sign out of them before you're ready to trust. Testing is just another way of reaching, and it carries the same anxious frequency as chasing. It also tends to backfire because manufactured tests produce manufactured results that tell you nothing real. You don't need to test the thing you're allowing to unfold naturally. Let their genuine, unprompted movement be your only evidence. The truest test is the one you never have to set because they walk toward you without being maneuvered into it. Let me speak to the nights because that's where stillness is hardest to hold. In the daylight, your life fills the space and the waiting is bearable. But when the day goes quiet and you're alone with your thoughts, the old ache rises, the phone feels heavy in your hand, and the urge to reach becomes almost unbearable. Know that this is coming so it doesn't catch you off guard. The nighttime pull toward contact is not a sign that you should give in. It's simply the hour when your defenses are lowest and your longing is loudest. Let the urge crest and pass without acting on it. Nothing that needs to be sent in the vulnerable hush of a lonely night ever truly needs to be sent. Let the morning and your steadier self decide. I want to reframe the patience this all requires because you've been experiencing it as deprivation and it's actually the opposite. Holding still and letting someone come to you is one of the purest forms of self-love there is. It's you refusing to abandon your own worth for the sake of a faster result. It's you saying, with your actions, that you will not beg for what should be freely offered, that you honor yourself too much to chase. Every hour you hold your position is an hour you spend choosing yourself. The patience isn't you going without. It's you demonstrating to yourself most of all that you finally believe you're worth waiting for. And let me give you a piece of discernment for when they do return, because not every return is equal and you deserve to tell the difference. A momentary impulse looks different from a genuine reckoning. Someone reaching out of a passing loneliness tends to test the water and drift again. Someone who has truly understood what they nearly lost comes back with consistency. They keep showing up, keep making the effort, keep demonstrating through steady action rather than a single dramatic gesture. You don't have to decide anything at the first knock. Let their consistency over a little time tell you which kind of return this is. The one meant for you won't mind proving itself because a person who genuinely wants you is glad of the chance to show it. One last thing before we close, because it's the quiet engine underneath all of this. Each hour you hold your position, the pull grows a little stronger. This isn't a single dramatic moment, but a slow accumulation, a compounding. The first stretch of stillness is barely felt on their side, but it builds. The absence deepens. The wondering sharpens. The taking for granted erodes a little more with every passing quiet. So if it feels early on like nothing is happening, understand that something is always happening. It's simply gathering below the surface, the way pressure builds long before it moves. Your only task is to not interrupt the gathering. Hold and let it accumulate into something that finally has to move. And release completely the fear that holding still means you're doing nothing. Stillness is the most active thing you've done in this connection for a long while because it takes everything in you to override the instinct to chase. And that override is the work. Every moment you don't reach, you are actively reshaping the entire dynamic. You are teaching, through your steadiness, a new lesson about your worth. Doing nothing has never required more strength, and nothing you could actively do would accomplish half as much as this disciplined, dignified, rooted refusal to abandon your own ground. As this reading settles toward its close, I want to leave you with the heart of what I felt for you throughout our time together here on Sarah Angel Tarot. Not a promise that you'll never have to reach for anyone again, but the deep reassurance that you are always worth reaching for. And that the stillness you're being asked to hold is not emptiness, but power. The quiet, rooted power of a person who finally knows their own worth and no longer feels the need to prove it by chasing. So here's what to do with yourself between now and the moment they move. Turn back toward your own life with everything you've got. Let your days be full and good and genuinely yours. Keep the door open, but stop standing in the doorway. Stop watching the horizon for their approach and simply live so completely and so well that when they do come, and I feel that they come, they arrive to find you radiant and occupied and whole, exactly the person they should have been chasing all along. You don't have to make it happen. You only have to stop making it not happen by reaching too soon. Hold still. Let the space between you do its quiet work. Let them feel the absence of the pursuit they took for granted and discover in that absence how much they want it back. You have spent so much of your life in motion toward other people. This is the season where you get to stand still and be moved toward, to be the destination rather than the traveler, the one who is sought rather than the one who seeks. It suits you. It was always meant to be your position. Take it and don't move. They're already on their way.